Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Forrest Holby here, and welcome back to another live reading stream. Jeez, you can background noise already starting, alright. In any event, we are continuing where we left off with Her Perfect Family by Teresa Driscoll. In the last episode, we found, in the last part, and if you don't want to be spoiled, probably just mute if you don't want to hear what I gotta say, but you still kind of want to watch where I'm at here, then just I'll put a thumbs up here. But in the last part, we pretty much found out that our female victim is pregnant, but we do not currently know who the father is. But she believes it's either her ex-boyfriend Alexander or one of her school professors whom she is having a secret affair with. Which the professor's wife or girlfriend or whatever she is to him does not currently know about it. We also found out more about Ed Hartley's ex-wife, his first wife, Laura, and now we are in this position where Matt detective, where the private investigator is currently trying to calm Alex down lest Alex does something very, very badly. In any event, that is where we are at right now, because Alex wants to know if he is indeed the father of the victim named Gemma, if he is the father of her baby, which the parents did not know about, but they now do. But we're going to see why that is the case here in this part. So, without further ado, let's begin. Chapter 33, The Father Now. And I also would like to point out again, if you guys send a comment and I don't read it, it's because I'm in the middle of the book. But I will read the comments after each chapter has been done, alright? Just so we're on the same page. Chapter 33, The Father Now. Ed expects D.I. Sanders to be waiting for him with Rachel at the hospital. Instead, he finds the ward in a strange state of heightened activity. There are several huddles, nurses and visitors, each grouped around the various TVs set at intervals along the opposite wall. Several heads turn as he walks in. All he can make out on the televisions are different shots of a car park. He can't read the scrolling headlines from where he's standing, yet all the faces look sheepish. What's going on? More heads turn to him. You should go through and join your wife, a nurse says finally. I need to know what's happened. Ed directs this at the policeman on duty outside Gemma's cubicle, but the guard just stands to open the door into Gemma's space. Inside, Rachel has her hand up to her mouth, watching the TV above Gemma's bed on mute, tears rolling down her cheeks. He was expecting an immediate row over Laura, a scene with D.I. Sanders. It's Alex, Rachel whispers. He's on the top of a car park, threatening to jump. What? And they're showing that live on TV? No, not live. But they're showing pictures. He's got a banner, Ed, and a loud hailer. He's making demands, saying things about Gemma. Gemma? What the hell? Ed moves deeper into the room so he can read the screen. A rolling headline says, Rooftop protest linked to coma student Gemma Hartley. He's told everyone she's pregnant, Ed. The whole world. Rachel is sobbing now. Why would he do that? Why would he do such a horrible thing? Is this because we refused to see him? Ignored those notes? Alex sent a second note asking for a paternity test. A ridiculous request. He gave the note to D.I. Sanders. She said not to engage. Ed moves across the room to put his arms around Rachel's shoulders, the chasm and confusion over Laura temporarily forgotten. The absolute bastard. Why are the media allowing this? He contacted them through some campaign groups, pro-lifers and father's rights groups. He says he has a right to know if it's his baby. He's going on about wanting the test. He says we're refusing to see him and the police won't tell him anything either. He's saying that he wants to bring the child up himself. The man's completely off his head. This is monstrous. Ed feels furious, also helpless. He was resigned to the possibility of Gemma's news becoming public eventually, but not like this. He glances at their daughter, silent and still in the bed. She has on the headphones that Rachel now uses to resolve their disagreement over whether Gemma can hear. They're his expensive noise-canceling ones. Rachel plugs them into her iPad, linked to a relaxation or meditation app, playing gentle sounds of running water, a soft breeze. It normally annoys him that Rachel still insists on this. He doesn't think Gemma can hear, but at least they've stopped arguing about it, and today he's surprised to feel grateful for the precaution. He could not bear for his daughter, trapped wherever she is trapped, to know what's going on today. Just a week after someone sank a bullet in her leg. Do we still need to talk about Laura? Ed staring at Rachel. Yes, but not now. Not now. D.I. Sanders is dealing with all of this first. Oh, what the hell do we do? Rachel's tone is desperate. Should we get a lawyer, do you think? Is there some way we can stop the media running this? Letting them say these things? I don't know, love. What about Helen's sister? She deals with the press all the time. Maybe she can advise us. No, no. We don't really know her, do we? And we need to be careful who we talk to. But Rachel's already taken out her phone and is trying. What are you doing? I'm just sending a text to Helen, telling her we need media advice. Ed lets out a huff of air. This is not favor territory. What about the police guy, in their press office? I don't like him. I'm not even sure I trust him, Ed. Well, I'm going to ring our lawyer. We need proper sound advice, not favors. He stands just as the picture on the TV changes. There's a close-up of Alex sitting on the outer wall of the car park's top story. A headline says, "These are not live pictures." There's some kind of homemade banner strung out from the wall. The other channels pixelated it. But not this one. Ed leans forward to read it properly. Rachel follows his gaze and does the same. A father's rights. Why do they say it's not live? They probably don't want to get blamed if he jumps. Jumps? Rachel looks horrified. You don't seriously think he'll jump, do you? She looks back at the screen. No, no. He's doing this for attention. To ruin Gemma's life. Like when he came here and caused the scene. He's just bitter because they split up. And what if he is the father? Ed looks at Gemma. What if he actually did this to her? Rachel looks confused. You're just saying that because you don't want to believe it could be Laura. He doesn't answer at first. Doesn't want to fight over Laura while all this is going on. What if he meant to kill her, Rachel, but didn't know about the baby, and now he's doing this out of guilt, because he realizes he nearly killed his own child? Rachel turns back to the screen, tears still rolling down her cheeks. A male reporter, his hand holding his earpiece in place, is now giving an update live. He says that the rooftop protesters understood to be the boyfriend of Gemma Hartley, who was shot during her graduation ceremony at Medstead Cathedral. Ex-boyfriend, Rachel barks at the screen. The reporter continues to say the protesters emailed local media to claim that he and Gemma are expecting a baby together and he wants to a say in the child's future, and information on Gemma's condition in hospital, which he's being denied. How are they allowed to say this? Rachel's tone is utterly distraught. The phone at their legal team's office is finally connected but goes through to an answer phone. Damn. Ed asks for his lawyer to return his call urgently, but checks his watch and realizes it's unlikely. They've only used the firm for wills and moving house. He has no idea if they do out-of-hours work or will even be able to advise him within standard hours. Rachel's phone buzzes. It's a text from Helen. She's watching the news too. The National Bulletin must be running a summary. She pauses to read some more. She sent her sister's number. So what do you think? She's experienced with the media. Shall I ring her? No. I don't think that's a good idea at all. The fewer people we speak to, the better. Rachel hesitates, and then Ed can see a male reporter just finishing his live update on the TV screen above Rachel's head. The journalist suddenly turns toward the car park, which is behind him. It's not possible to see Alex from the reporter's position. Ed suspects that's deliberate in case something awful happens. Wait a moment. I'm just hearing something. The reporter seems to be listening to someone out of shot. When he turns back, his eyes are at first difficult to read. Okay, the police are sharing an update. Chapter 34, Black and White. Shouldn't it always be what's best for the child? Isn't that always the bottom line? Here's the way I see it. I have everything ready. I forgot to... There you go. No comments yet. I almost forgot to check that. Here's the way I see it. I have everything ready. Everything's set up. I'm prepared to do this properly. To put everything else on hold for this. That's what a child needs. Absolute dedication. Unconditional love. A person who doesn't want a child shouldn't have that child. The child would be better off somewhere else, with someone who wants them. Being wanted is the most important thing of all, surely. It's not rocket science. It's simple. I am ready to do this. Make the sacrifices. The child should be with me. People are not always what they seem to be, and sometimes people just will not listen, or believe, or face up to the truth. But I know the truth, and I see things clearly here. I see things that other people cannot see. People just need to listen to me now. I feel completely sure that I know what's best here. Chapter 35, The Father Before. Ed Hartley was certainly not looking for love the night he met Rachel. He'd given up on love. In fact, had pretty much given up on life. Back in England, after the nightmare of Laura's illness, he told no one the truth of what happened in Canada. Without parents to take an interest and no siblings, there was just a small circle of friends who were all surprised to learn he was back so soon. So what happened? At first, Ed hedged his bets, imagining he would eventually be returning to Canada, that a treatment program would be found for Laura. Given this, he dodged all the questions out of loyalty to his wife. He didn't want her to be judged, and he didn't want to be judged himself for seeming to have abandoned her. But as the weeks stretched to months, with Laura's condition getting worse rather than better, his strategy came undone. He felt utterly isolated. His circle of friends was the usual mix of old and newer via work. There were a few university friends who kept in touch, and a couple of boarding school friends who knew him a little better, being aware of his childhood trauma. There was also Mark, who'd worked alongside him at the agency before Canada. Ed liked Mark, a laid-back kind of guy with a dry wit and a warm smile. He wasn't as blokey and showy as some others in marketing. They often had drinks together on a Friday. He and Laura had invited him for a supper a few times, and she liked him too. They'd issued an open invitation for Mark to visit them in Canada. They'd even exchanged letters over possible dates, but of course the trip never came off. Mark was one of the first to get in touch with both curiosity and concern when Ed was suddenly back in the UK. Ed played it cool, put on his brave face. He shared only that he and Laura were sadly sadly trialing the separation. He let the assumption of an affair hang in the air, neither confirming nor denying leading questions. He got sympathy and curiosity, and handled both from his dazed state with a mixture of detachment and annoyance. Still, Ed was hoping to keep Laura in his life. What he didn't realize at the time was he was already slipping slowly into a depression. He had some savings and set himself up initially in a budget hotel near Bristol. He spent his days filing his CV with recruitment agencies, stressing that he didn't mind where he worked, but he needed something fast. He didn't want to commit to renting anywhere to live until he knew where work might take him. His CV was thankfully sound, and in the end it was Mark who came up trumps work-wise. He'd moved and was now in a senior role in a marketing agency in Manchester. He offered Ed some freelance contracts with clients in the sector he knew well, drinks and hospitality. Ed did so well he was offered a contract, which Mark hinted was very likely to turn into a full-time job. So Ed took the plunge and got himself a studio flat with river views. He couldn't say that he was happy, but he found a way to function, the hermit life. He'd phoned Canada every week at first, pushing for permission to visit Laura. But there was no change in her condition and no change in the advice for him to stay away. Slowly, her parents became more distant on the phone. The gap between calls became greater. After 6 months, they raised the D word, believing it better for Laura, better for them too. Get on with your life, Ed. This is the best way to help her. Let her go. He resisted. He investigated therapies in the UK, but it was like pushing water uphill, and there was no way Laura could travel or even see him. After nearly 2 years, he caved, signed the divorce papers. He had never felt such a failure, in sickness and in health. He'd let Laura down and he'd let himself down. Through all this, Mark coaxed him out when he could. Drinks here and there. A movie. He tried to get him to talk properly about what had happened with Laura, but Ed said there was nothing much to talk about. We got married too quickly. End of. And then one cold week in November, Mark and his girlfriend, Lottie, invited him to dinner. Just a few nice people. Please come. It was all very last minute. A call just a couple of hours ahead of the meal. He doesn't even remember why he said yes in the end. Maybe precisely because it was late notice. No big deal. But suddenly he was out on a Saturday evening, freshly divorced and freshly showered in a clean shirt. And there she was. Rachel in her red dress with her big, broad smile and her sparkly eyes. I hear you were in Canada. So what's Canada like? I don't really like to talk about it, to be honest. He looked into her face and waited for the wary expression. He waited for the follow-up questions and the narrowing of eyes. He waited for her to look bored, to excuse herself to the bathroom so she could return and talk to the guest on her other side without seeming rude. But to his surprise, none of that happened. That night, or ever. Instead, Rachel leaned in closer and her smile broadened. Well, that's fine by me. Let's forget Canada. So what do you like to talk about? Chapter 36. The Daughter Before. Revenge is not forced upon a person, but is a choice. Discussed in relation to A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I still feel numb. I still feel angry. And I still feel a complete mug. But I also feel just a tiny bit more in control, because at least I'm getting information together. Proper information on my opinion, on my options. You know, I did it again where I forgot to check the thing. Okay. I finally got to see S yesterday, and I've spent most of the time since in bed or on the phone, trying to be more practical. I will not let that man ruin my life. I now have an assessment booked. Apparently they can do a scan to work out my exact dates, so I know exactly how long I have before I need to make a final decision. They're also offering counseling, which I will definitely need because I honestly still have no idea what to do. When I got back to my flat after seeing them together, S and his very pregnant wife, I was so furious. I wanted revenge. I admit it. I wanted to tell everyone. I wanted to ring my friend Maddie, post it on social media, stuff his stupid job. I go cold thinking about it now. The fallout if I'd done that, I mean. But thankfully, I calmed down quickly enough to realize a public showdown would reflect as badly on me as him. And it's not just me anymore. I have to think of the baby, if there's even to be a baby. So I sent a text to S, threatening to call round at his house for a chat if he didn't reply. He replied. We met at a hotel we've been to before in a small village. I had to take a damn train again, fuming all the way. This time he didn't book a room. He met me in a tiny alcove in the corner of a snug bar at the back of the place. I can only assume he was planning to break up with me while securing a promise not to kiss and tell, so I decided to come out with it straight. I'm pregnant. I've been trying to contact you ever since I found out. The shock on his face was extraordinary. Pregnant? But I thought you were on the pill. He was whispering and glancing around. I am. I don't know how it happened. So why the radio silence? Ghosting me. He ran his fingers through his hair and I watched his face really, really carefully, and it was like seeing him for the very first time. I honestly couldn't believe in that moment that I had been such a fool. He feigned all this concern, tilted his head, and suddenly, instead of seeing this man as mature and kind and genuinely into me, it was like watching him through this new lens, an actor rehearsing. Wow, poor you. What an awful worry. He leaned forward and touched my hand. I pulled it back. Yes, poor me. So why didn't you text me back? I wasn't ready to tell him what I already knew. I wanted to see what lies he would tell me, how he would try to squirm out of the hole. But I honestly had no idea just how callous he would be. I'll pay. You mustn't worry about the money. What? I could feel all this bile bubbling up. I was so shocked and so angry I wanted to hit him. I had to clench my hands in a fist on my lap to stop them trembling. Well, you can't keep it. You won't want to keep it. He paused. I do know it will be unpleasant, awful for you, but I'll help you through it. You will get past this. And what if I want to keep it? The baby. Our baby? Until that moment, I honestly hadn't let myself even imagine this. I am terrified of a termination, but kind of imagined I'd have no other option. But us taking it instantly for granted I would do that without a second thought was too much. Well, you can't keep it. How can you keep it? Bring up a child? I thought you were going to leave your wife down the line. That's what you said. That's what you made me believe, that we were going to be together. He blushed then, those fingers through his hair again. Well, actually, that's why I haven't been in touch. He cleared his throat. He cast his actor's eyes across the room and then back again, lowering his chin. I wondered if he actually practiced this in a mirror. She's not been well. What's the matter with her? I told you. She's fragile. Ups and downs. Wearing it down. I remembered them alongside the car with the picnic basket. The way he kissed her. The way he touched her bump. Cupped her face. Took the sunglasses on the top of her head and placed them gently back on her nose. I took in a deep breath and was weighing up if what I actually wanted was a scene. To call him out there and then. Shout. Cry. Have it out with him in public. Hit him? A part of me did very much want all that, but another part of me felt such an idiot too. I mean, you read this about this kind of man. You see him in the movies. The problem is that you think you will be able to spot him in the flesh. I looked right into his face and spoke very quietly. I saw you. You and your pregnant wife. So you can cut the bullshit. I stood and picked up my handbag. I came here tonight for one reason only. To warn you that I have your number. And you'd better watch yourself. Because if I want to ruin your career, I can. And I will. And then I did something very childish but immensely satisfying. I threw the glass of wine he'd just bought me in his face. Ooh, shoot. Putting him on notice she is. Very much. Chapter 37. The Private Investigator. You don't seriously think I'm buying this good cop, bad cop bollocks, do you? Alex doesn't turn his head as he says this, but there is a distinct change. Not only in his tone, but in his posture. He just takes a sip of the coffee, sits up straighter on his little patch of car parked wall, and puts the blanket tighter around his shoulders. Matthew's thrown. A moment ago, he genuinely thought he was getting through. Alex appeared to be listening. So was that just an act? Was Mel right about Alex? Matthew opts for silence, needing a beat to regroup. Alex waits too, but then swings his leg to and fro as if to taunt Matthew, turning to stare right at him, like a dare. So, I'm right? They sent you over to pretend to be nice to me? I'm not pretending. I am actually quite nice. This makes Alex laugh for the first time, and Matthew feels another shift inside. The guy in the blanket no longer sounded like or looking like a man who has any intention whatsoever of ending his life. It's risky, but Matthew decides to push forward. Full horns. Look, you watch the telly. You're a bright guy. You clearly know the score here, the tactics. But I really do want to help, so you need to work out an exit strategy. And what precisely do you suggest, Mr. Nice Guy? It's time to move to the next phase, Alex. To deal with the police. And yeah, that's going to be a pain in the ass. But that's just how it is after the protest like this. But the media are also going to want to do more on this. And that's what you want, isn't it? So we're still pretending you're not the police? I'm not. Alex appears to be thinking about this as Matthew's phone rings. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to take this. You stay calm now. Are you okay to wait just for a moment? Alex shrugs as if he doesn't care. It's Mel. We have some more background info on Alex. Family issues. He's estranged from his adopted parents. They say he has been trying to find his birth mother and then cut them out of his life. Behavior issues going right back to primary school. Sounds like controlling behavior to me. Possibly abandonment issues. We need to look into this more and tread very carefully, Matt. Understood. Who's that? What are they saying? Alex narrows his eyes. Matthew puts the mobile to his chest. They want to know if we need anything else. I'm going to tell them we're moving down. Is that okay? Alex shrugs again. Matthew puts the phone back to his ear. No more coffee, thanks. We're coming down now. He hangs up. That right, Alex, isn't it? You ready? Alex shifts his position. He looks at the office block opposite. No faces at the window anymore. Moved out by the police. Then he turns his head back to look again at Matthew intently, again narrowing his eyes. Okay, yeah, I'm ready now. Alex suddenly swings both his legs back over the ledge and turns his whole body to face the inside of the car park. He's still sitting on the wall, but with his back now to the drop. He's glaring at Matthew and rocks to and fro. I could still do it, you know. A pause. And you'd be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't you? Matthew takes in the new and sinister expression on Alex's face. They lock eyes, unblinking. They both keep very still, silent. And then Alex suddenly laughs. Chapter 30. Oh, hold on a second. Alright. Chapter 38. The Mother. What's happening? I'm frowning as we both stare at the television. The TV reporter has turned his head to the side again and is pressing his earpiece in place. No idea. Ed's eyes are wide. He sits down while we wait, crossing his legs and jiggling his right foot up and down. I glance at Gemma, her face as still as ever, the headphones in place. A sweep of dread as I think of all the horrible things we have to tell her when she wakes up. Suddenly, the reporter is looking at the camera with the update. I'm being told the situation has been resolved safely. I feel my shoulders slump. We wait in silence as words scroll across the screen, confirming that Alex is now in police custody. The newsfeed immediately updates to live pictures and we watch as uniformed officers remove the banner Alex hung from the top ledge of the car park. I can feel in my heart as I can feel my heart still beating too fast as my phone goes. I pick it up from the side table to see an unknown number. It's probably the media. Don't answer. Ed sounds nervous. How would they get my mobile number? I'll just listen. See what it is. I don't know what to expect, but the voice is measured and calm. Hello, it's Amanda here. Helen's sister. Helen got your text and asked me to ring you, but please say if it's a bad time to talk. Oh, no, it's fine. I'm grateful Helen passed on the message. I was just wondering if you knew the latest. That Alex is in custody? Literally this minute. I'm watching it on television. Yes, we're watching it too. Look, I'm not really sure what you were hoping. Helen said you were worried about the media? That you needed help? Yes, we are. We're beside ourselves, to be honest. We can't understand how this was allowed. All over the television? Ed staring at me, frowning, and so I hold the phone away from my face for a moment to mouth that it's Helen's sister. Be very careful what you say, he's whispering, eyes wide. I'm not comfortable with any of this. We were just after some advice about how to handle this. The media, I mean. We're taking legal advice too, but it's all a bit overwhelming. The coverage of the shooting was bad enough, but this... I'm just about to go into another meeting at the university. Amanda's tone is guarded, and I feel a wave of disappointment. We'll be liaising with the police. They have a good press office. Have their people not been advising you? They're normally very helpful in situations like this. Sort of. But through D.I. Sanders. I don't add that I don't much like the police comms guy. We feel a bit exposed, to be honest. A bit helpless. We just wondered if you could give us some advice. You know, independently. There's a pause. Please know that I feel for you and I want to help. Of course I do. But it's just a little bit tricky given my role here, I mean. There's another pause and I realize Ed was right. She's not going to help us. Listen, Mrs. Hartley. Rachel, please. Rachel. We're all so devastated about what's happened. We think of Gemma all the time. How is she today, by the way? The same. I glance again at Gemma. I'm with her now. She's just the same. As I say, we're all thinking of you. And I will get back to you once I've got a stronger picture of what's going on. Does that sound okay? Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. You're welcome. I hang up. Helen's sister. She works in PR for the university. Yes, I know. But they will be more worried about the university and its reputation than Gemma. You do realize that? I think that's a bit harsh. She sounded nice, and she didn't have to ring. She's paid by the university, Rachel. Yes, I did get the feeling it's tricky for her. Told you. My heart sinks. I feel that I need someone on our side. My side. I don't know what we should do, what we should be doing next, or not doing, to speak up for our daughter while she can't. There's a knock on the door to the cubicle and the police guard then leans in to check that we're up to date. We nod. He says that the team have been in touch and D.I. Sanders will talk to us as soon as she can, but she'll be tied up with interviewing Alex first. Thank you, good. I try to find a half smile. He meets my eye, closes the door again, and retreats. And then Ed and I just sit in silence for a bit as the television screen moves to a shot of D.I. Sanders, who's making a short statement. We watch the words scroll below her, summarizing. Ed reaches for the remote control and puts up the volume, just a little. D.I. Sanders is saying not only what we know already, the situation has been resolved safely. No one was hurt, and the man's now in custody. She thanks everyone for their cooperation at the scene, but says it's too early to comment further. I can see a number of reporters moving forward with microphones, all taking over each other, trying to pose questions, but D.I. Sanders just smiles and steps aside, ushering swiftly into a waiting car. And it is the sight of her, D.I. Sanders, that suddenly pulls me back to reality. Laura, Ed's wife. I'm pretty sure she followed me. Stalked me, I say suddenly, turning to Ed. And even as the words leave my mouth, my mind is shooting through time to the moment the photographs pinged into my phone from Ed's at the house, before the horror of all this nonsense with Alex. And I can no longer make any sense of any of this. I don't know whether to still suspect Laura, or whether this has all been Alex all along. Who? Laura, your first wife. That's why I needed to see the photograph. I put my hand up to my head, realizing that I should have said something to the guard. I shouldn't have let this business with Alex distract me so completely. But she could look entirely different now. Ed's face is flushed and I feel a coldness inside. Anger at him again. The fury at Alex switching back into his room. The confusion returning that my own husband kept such from me. Lied to me. What do you mean, stalked you? Ed glances back at the TV screen as if, like me, you can't compute these two very different strands to this horrible nightmare. I have spoken to D.I. Sanders. It can't wait. I say, standing. Turn the television off and let the garden here. No, tell me first. What on earth do you mean? Rachel's been stalking you? So depending on how fast I get to this, hmm. So I know where my stopping point for this part is going to be. But for now, we're gonna keep reading. Also. Okay. Chapter 39. The Daughter Before. Discuss how Mary Shelley's troubled family life is evident in her writing. There's so much going on. I'm exhausted. I worked out the dates after seeing the counselor at the clinic, and I can technically bump the decision about the pregnancy until after graduation, so that's what I've decided to do. I'll get the ceremony done, and then I'll tell Mom and Dad. Try to get them on board, whatever I decide to do. It will be horrible, and I am dreading it. I keep imagining Mom's face, but the counselor reminded me I'm lucky to have a family who could support me. She says I shouldn't assume I know how they'll react, so I'm doing what she recommended, one step at a time. Results come in 3 weeks today. I've got everything crossed for a first, but I'm worrying now whether S would do anything stupid to interfere with my result. Surely he can't do that. I've checked all the grades online. It's looking good, and the last exam went well. I worked really, really hard for it. Whatever. If S tries to interfere, I'll demand an investigation. The counselor's right. I need to stop worrying about things that haven't happened yet and concentrate on the things I can control. So, I need to wait for the result. And I need to get through the ceremony. At least I'll have my degree. I'll be going home. I've spoken to my landlord and I can stay on in the flat until the end of the summer if I want. The other two girls are going home a bit early and traveling to graduation with their parents. I don't want to do that. Mom will fuss, and I'll struggle to look her in the eye. I'll have to make up some excuse to stay on something to do with sorting the flat out. The only thing on my mind now is getting a job, earning a living. If I do decide to keep the baby, I really can't picture that, to be honest, but I'm keeping it on the list of options. I don't want Mom and Dad to think I expect them to bail me out financially. I have no idea about stuff like childcare, but I need to get a job after the baby arrived and to work all that out. It sounds impossible, right? I've only got real retail in my CV, working in chemists and bookshops. It, that's not going to earn enough to pay for childcare, is it? A while back, I sent an email to the university comms department asking for some work experience. Just a week. Something to put on the CV, so that it looks better when I apply for proper jobs later on. But get this. The head of comms said her office was way too busy. Sorry, I wish you well. I can't believe it. You'd think university staff would want to help their own. And on top of everything, the problem with A is back. I thought he'd finally accepted it was over and would leave me alone, but I think people starting to talk about the graduation has stirred him up. Months ago, we talked about getting the two families together for a joint celebration. Dinner out. Feels like a different life to remember that now. Today and yesterday, I've had two more weird direct messages on Facebook. He's not who he says he is. I checked the profile. I must have accepted the friend request without checking. I do that sometimes. I've got hundreds of friends. That's just how it is at uni. But I'm worried now that it's A. The profile has no friends. Just me. It had a picture of a bar in town, which is why I probably accepted without thinking. That picture's still there, but it's nothing to do with the bar. My first thought was to unfriend the profile or report it, but I'm holding off because I want to investigate. See whether the message stops if I ignore them. See whether the messages stop if I ignore them. Most of all, I'm worrying that if this is A, he's somehow found out about S. He's not who he says he is. The truth? This may sound paranoid, but my biggest fear now is that maybe A has been following me. Chapter 40. The Private Investigator. Mel has put Alex in the interview room early so they can watch him on the computer screen via the live camera feeds. He looks cocky, almost bored. What do you make of him, Matt? Mel leans in closer to the screen. Hard to read. He's arrogant, manipulative, likes to have the upper hand. Capable of shooting Gemma? Matthew lets out a long breath. It's so hard to call what people are capable of. So many with dark minds live perfectly ordinary lives, holding down demanding jobs. Matthew's learned to keep an open mind. Always. He's controlling. So possibly, who knows what went on between them over the breakup. Do we have any more from his family? Yes, very interesting. They're here, but he's refusing to see them. Adoptive parents. They're in bits. Seem genuine. Their story is that the relationship's been especially bad since Alex went to uni. He's become obsessed with finding his birth mother, but hasn't been able to trace her yet. Could be why he's so fixated on the baby. What was I thinking? Wish you'd let me interview him, Mel. He's our prime suspect for sending the dolls, including the one to your house. Best not. Mel pauses. But I'm going to lead myself. Won't that just put more noses out of joint? Mel Sargent will be expecting to take the interview. I think that boat sailed. Matthew laughs. Mel has a reputation for doing what works rather than what's popular, especially when she's under pressure from the suits upstairs. She leaves the room and a few minutes later appears on the screen as she enters the interview room with the sergeant alongside her. As Matthew puts on the headphones, Mel starts the recording of the interview and dives straight in. Recognize these, Alex? She slides pictures of the dolls across the desk. Alex glances at them and then shrugs. Never seen them before. It's hard to read his eyes, but Matthew remembers the car part. Alex's ability to play games. Someone sent these dolls to Gemma Hartley's parents, among others. Someone with a nasty mind. Was that you, Alex? No. Why would I do that? For the same reason you caused a nasty scene at the hospital and in the center of town. Because you can't accept that Gemma ended your relationship. Alex looks up to the ceiling. He doesn't reply. Mel waits. I understand you've had some family issues lately. This past year. Is that what this is all about? My family is none of your business. Well, I beg to differ. Is that why you're so wound up over Gemma's pregnancy? The baby? Because of your own background, Alex? I want a lawyer. I thought you said you didn't want a lawyer. That that you'd done nothing wrong and you didn't need one. Well, I've changed my mind. Matthew narrows his eyes and leans in to take in Alex's expression. So the uber confident Alex is feeling the pressure after all. Chapter 41. The Father. Now. They've had a message that D.I. Sanders will be with them in half an hour. Rachel's refusing to leave Gemma, so it's not an option to go to the police station together. They've been sitting in silence, each pretending to read again. Gemma has the bloody headphones on still. Ed wonders if he's wrong. If she really can hear the running water and the wind through the leaves. All that meditation stuff Rachel loves. His own mind is all over the place, darting between theories. He glances up to the blank TV screen, switched off since Alex's arrest. He's still struggling to understand why on earth Laura would be in the country. He simply can't make the leap to see her being capable of violence, but none of this is making sense. Why would she follow Rachel? Of course, her illness makes her irrational, and it could make her seem alarming. He of all people knows that. But she's unwell. She's not a bad person. His heart is telling him there has to be some other explanation. She wouldn't harm Gemma. He's confused, much more inclined to put this whole dreadful business down to Alex. I mean, just look at his outburst at the hospital, and the car park fiasco. It's hard to believe they didn't see through him earlier, that they actually welcomed him into their home, their lives. How the hell could they have missed the signs? I just realized. Ed took Alex fishing once on a weekend trip away from while Gemma and Rachel went shopping. It was a bank holiday weekend, and they rented a cottage near a river. It had spectacular views, and Rachel was mesmerized. She would stand for ages at the folding doors from the kitchen extension. Maybe we should think about moving, Ed. Somewhere with a view. What do you think? It was back in the days when Gemma was insisting that she and Alex were serious. Personally, Ed took this with a pinch of salt. They were kids still, but he wanted his daughter to learn her own lessons and wanted to, above all, for her to see that he trusted her. And so, yes, he played along and took his daughter's boyfriend fishing. It was a little awkward at first, but Alex wasn't bad company. They talked music mostly and discovered an unexpected mutual appreciation of jazz. In the end, Ed rather enjoyed the couple of hours at the river together. They didn't catch anything, but it was fun to share the stories of the bites when the girls returned laden with shopping bags. And he loved Gemma's smile when she caught his eye, and he gave her the thumbs up. Later in bed, Rachel had said she was grateful too, as she'd had a lovely time with Gemma, just the two of them. But then she paused and added in quite a serious tone that she found Alex a little bit too good to be true. What do you mean? Well, bringing me presents each time. Don't you find that a little bit much? A bit creepy? He had to think about it for a bit. Most people would be grateful for a young man who bothered with gifts, but she was right, actually. It was a little bit weird, as if Alex wanted to ingratiate himself with Gemma with the show of consideration towards Rachel. It would have been fine and understandable if he and Rachel were close, but they weren't at all. When left alone together, Alex struggled to find anything to say to Rachel. He would immediately get his phone out, she said. Borderline rude. It was almost as if he only wanted to make an effort if Gemma was watching. Ed hadn't liked this about Alex, but at the time he put it down to his youth. The truth was, Ed had always seen Alex as wanting to impress Gemma, and that she hadn't seen such a bad thing in a boyfriend. He had honestly not seen any sign in Alex he was capable of turning on Gemma. Was that a lack of judgment on his part as a father? Or was Alex just a very good actor? Whatever the case, Ed now sees Alex as someone deeply troubled, maybe even with some kind of personality disorder. His thinking is that with anyone capable of staging that horrific nonsense at the car park is capable of the shooting at the cathedral. He shudders at the thought of it. He shudders at the thought of it. Him alongside Alex fishing. Alex in the cathedral with a gun? What Ed still can't contemplate is that Laura would be involved. He's desperately trying to work out why the hell Laura might travel to the UK. There's been no contact in years, so it really shook him when D.I. Sanders said she was no longer at the clinic in Canada. But the greater leap is Rachel's new suspicion that she is here in the UK and has been following her. That could be mistaken identity, of course. Paranoia, even? But what the hell is the postcard all about? He presses his hand against his pocket, the rectangle of cardboard inside a plastic bag in case the police need to check for prints. He's planning to hand it over to D.I. Sanders, but all of a sudden, a crazy thought circles the room and lands in his brain. Is there a chance the postcard could actually be down to Rachel? Getting back at him? For the secret over Laura? He glances across at his wife. This woman has not a bad bone in her body. No, no, no. He's going mad. She wouldn't do something like that. Not Rachel. Not in the middle of all this. Would she? What? Rachel has looked up from her book. I didn't say anything. You made a really weird noise. Like exasperations. Or shock or something. Ed wasn't aware that he'd made any noise at all. Sorry, mind in overdrive here. Me too. I know I've said it already, but if I can go back in time, she puts her hand up to stop him. Please. Don't, Ed. Just don't. He stretches his arm to put his book down on the end of Gemma's bed, conscious only as he stares at it afterwards that it's in the very place her foot should be. Rachel follows his gaze, and he can tell by her expression that she's acknowledging the very same thought. They don't say anything. Neither of them are ready to talk about how they're going to tell their daughter. The prospect of rehab. What it will be like. All the physio and the reality of some kind of prosthetic limb. They don't talk about it because even that horror, the adjustment that their beautiful daughter has to face, is an assumption too far. Gemma has to make it out of the coma first. He checks his watch again. D.I. Sanders is running late. It could have been someone else with the same color hair. This again is thinking out loud. Rachel looks up at him. And why would she say such an odd thing? He's not who he says he is. Something which completely fits with Laura. The whole bizarre story that is... She pauses. Laura. He's trying to think of how to counter this when there's a tap at the door. Ed stands as he announces to D.I. Sanders that she can come in. Do you want to find a quiet room? An office? Mel Sanders is taking in Gemma's headphones, looking a little puzzled. I would prefer that, Rachel says, but I'll ask if a nurse can sit with her. They'll probably let us use the corner office if it's free. Rachel leaves the cubicle to Leah's with one of the nurses, and D.I. Sanders lets out a long sigh. I can't believe that media were allowed to cover it the way they did, Ed says. Alex's show. Some outlets held back. Our comms unit put out direct appeals to news desks. Some edited a lot out. But not all. No. We did our best, but I'm sorry you had to go through that. D.I. Sanders again looks at Gemma. I understand that your wife wants to speak to me on her own first. We'll send the nurse in when we're ready for you. Ed is shaken by this. Rachel didn't spell that out. He knows she's really upset over the shock of finding out about Laura, and he expected her to be. Who wouldn't be? But he hates the thought of not knowing what she's going to say to D.I. Sanders. The police officer pauses, but he has no idea what to say by way of protest. It can't be easy for your wife, D.I. Sanders says finally, as she heads for the door. No, and that's my fault. I do know that. Ed sits down and leans forward to put his head in his hands as the inspector leaves. He checks his watch with every 5 minutes, and it's 15 before a nurse finally comes into the room to tell him they're ready for him in the corner office. He tries to find a small smile of thanks, but his face muscles aren't working properly. He presses his hand once more against the hard rectangle of the postcard concealed in his pocket. The hypocrisy. He was going to show it quietly to the inspector, hoping Rachel would not see it, but he will not. But he will need to hand it over in front of Rachel now. He thinks of his bizarre suspicion, wondering if Rachel might have sent it in anger. A little dig. But this suspicion feels like yet another betrayal she doesn't deserve. He honestly doesn't know what it means or what to think anymore. His head hurts. Did Laura really send the postcard to him? If so, why? Still, he cannot think of her as anything other than unwell. But what if he got this all wrong? What if Laura is now more ill than he realizes, and he is allowing his own guilt to cloud his judgment? Ed feels a terrible weight as he pulls himself up to standing and weaves through the door in the center of the main ward towards the corner office that the nurses use for coffee breaks and admin during the night shift. Rachel is sitting next to a filing cabinet, drying her eyes. D.I. Sanders looks up and glances between them, and Ed worries there may be even more to this private meeting than he realizes. But what exactly? Why didn't you want me with you? He says this to Rachel, but she won't look up at him. What have you been saying? What's going on? Chapter 42. Black. I am watching an ant. It is tracing a line directly along the grout between the floor tiles. Black, bold, and to me, rather beautiful. I have never minded insects the way others do. Spiders, woodlice, ants. When I was a child, we lived in a house that seemed positively infested with spiders. My friends hated them, creating all sorts of scenes. But I was always fascinated by their endeavors, their secrecy, slipping in and out of rooms and weaving their magical webs, works of art, catching the light. I had a friend who had a large dog that was petrified of woodlice. The dog would cover across the room, sometimes weeing right on the carpet. My friend was mortified and her mother was furious, but I thought it was hilarious. A tiny woodlouse versus a large dog. As for ants, what little miracles. All they do is work. Busy, busy, busy. I like that. I understand that. What appeals to me about insects is they have it tough, but they don't let that stop them. I'm exactly like that. I focus on what I want and I work towards it. Like a spider. Like an ant. Take this one, now halfway across the room. It's on its own, which is rare, so it must be some kind of scout. But is it afraid? No. Is it focused? Yes. It probably has a nest of baby ants waiting for it to return with news of a new food source. This place is clean, so it won't find much, but top marks for trying. I like a trier. I put my hand up to my head and wish it didn't hurt as much. Too much thinking. I'm wondering what exactly the police are thinking. How much they really know. I need to be like that little ant. Keep focused. Keep my thoughts on the road ahead. On the baby ants back in the nest. On the future and the task at hand. I noticed my TV going on, so I need to turn that TV off before it plays any music. Alright. Back to the story. I bet you didn't know. Actually, I want to read that last paragraph just in case. I need to be like that little ant. Keep focused. Keep my thoughts on the road ahead. On the baby ants back in the nest. On the future and the task in hand. I bet you didn't know that the worker ants are actually female. That surprised me too. I looked it all up when I was a kid. The queen lays the eggs and the male ants die very soon after mating. Then the female worker ants take care of everything. I remember putting the book down after learning all of that and thinking, wow, realizing that you need to look out on the world in an entirely different way. It's like my USP now, knowing all this. Knowledge is power. Once you realize that the females can be in charge and the males had better watch out, you look at everyone differently. You behave differently. You know. It doesn't frighten me because I realize that most other people don't realize all of this. So I have stored the secret away and made myself stronger. So let me tell you this. I know about the worker ants and the dead male ants, and I am not going to let the system beat me. I am not giving up. I am not letting them win. I have come this far, and I swear on that little ant's life, I am not giving up now. That was a pretty good. That was a pretty good. That was actually a pretty good chapter on there, just by itself alone. That was a really good chapter. Chapter 43, The Private Investigator. Matthew checks his watch. He spent more than an hour on campus and has drawn a complete blank. Ahead of him is a large red brick building with an impressive first-floor terrace. It has small glass edging the whole area, and he can see a waitress delivering food and drinks. Good. He skipped breakfast and is starving. It's well signposted inside, and soon he's sitting at a table, enjoying the view across the parkland that divides the study halls from the students' accommodation. It's an appealing environment, and he wonders if Gemma and her friends have ever sat here. Probably. Almost certainly. Seems a prime spot. The thought chills him. Gemma in the past, carefree and complete with no idea what lay ahead. He closes his eyes to regroup, then opens them to look around properly. He's surprised at the age range. Mostly mature. Clearly not students. He's just processing this as a waitress appears and he orders coffee, water, and a panini. Panini. I'm surprised you're so busy, he says as she sets out his cutlery and napkin. I thought everything would be winding down. Far from it. Conference and summer school season straight after the graduations. Busier than ever. She tucks her order book into the pocket of her black apron. Just as well. I need the overtime. And then she's gone, and Matthew realizes there's much he doesn't know about the rhythm of university life and finances. No wonder the chancellor is paranoid about the bad press. The question mark is still hanging over the inquiry. No wonder she wants tomorrow's final ceremony. The confidence boost. The signal that life must go on. Across the courtyard in front of the building, Matthew watches a small group of teenagers following a woman wearing a university tabard. She has a clipboard and is pointing out various buildings and then waving her hand towards the blocks of accommodation in the distance. Some kind of open day? Summer course? The teenagers are asking questions just as his waitress reappears with his order. Matthew leans back as she puts the panini down, thanks her, and is just reaching for his cutlery when he looks up to see Amanda staring at him. News travels fast. He tries to make his tone lighter. She's been very helpful, recommending the counselor for Emily, and he doesn't want to fall out with Amanda. But she won't be pleased. Him poking around the campus. Do you fancy a coffee? I'm treating myself to brunch. No time, unfortunately. Just wondered if I can help you? Oh dear. Am I in trouble? Matthew bites into his panini to find it too hot. Melted cheese scorches his tongue and he takes a gulp of cold water. Sorry, always do that. My wife says it's because I'm greedy. No patience. Amanda smiles and sits in the chair opposite. Some members of staff contacted my office. Said you'd been asking questions again. Just wondered if I could help. No, I'm fine. Just routine stuff. Still trying to find out if the rumors are true. About Gemma having a fling with one of her professors. I don't suppose you've heard anything more about that? Amanda will know that all the tutors had been interviewed for had been interviewed formally. Dad's drawn a blank, but Matthew is now looking for informal tips. Amanda shakes her head and her expression falters. Matthew is well aware that the last thing the university needs is a scandal involving the shot student and a member of staff. He doesn't want to make Amanda's life difficult with the chancellor, but the bottom line is they have very different priorities professionally. She's here to warn him off. It's unsettling, people, all these questions. Yes, I know, and I'm sorry, but it is an attempted murder inquiry. Of course. The truth is he's found out nothing on any of his trips to campus. It's Thursday, 8 days since the shooting. The students are no longer around, and while sympathetic about Gemma, staff are either wary or openly hostile when he tries to question them about their relationships. He's spoken to just a handful today, most winding down admin in their offices. He wonders who alerted Amanda. Probably that guy in the politics unit. Do you have permission to be here? I had no idea the summer's such a season for the university. I thought the campus would shut up shop. Quite the opposite. Amanda takes in a long breath. So have there been any cancellations? Summer conferences, I mean? A couple. Which is why the chancellor's so twitchy. Matthew tries his panini again and is relieved to find it more manageable. Good, too. So are you allowed to say if Alex is going to be charged? Do you think it was him? There's a hopeful look on Amanda's face. We're all longing for this to be over. It would be such a relief to see a charge before tomorrow's ceremony. I'm sorry. You know I can't say. But trust me, we want this over as much as you do. Which is why I need to find out if Gemma really was having an affair with someone on the staff, however uncomfortable for the university. Amanda looks down at the floor and then back up. Actually, seeing as you're here, there's something I wanted to bounce past you. Fire away. The Hartleys have been in touch with me via my sister, looking for some advice about how to handle the media, especially tomorrow. A bit awkward for me, if I'm honest. I feel a bit compromised. Try to steer them to the police comms team, but the mother, Rachel, sounds quite at sea. She pauses. I mean, I'd like to help them in theory. To be honest, I still feel guilty for fobbing Gemma off about the work experience. It's tricky. Matthew thinks for a moment. I'll mention to Mel Sanders that they may need some more support. They've said no to a family and liaison officer for now. Don't want someone else with them at the hospital. Privacy, I guess. I don't see why you shouldn't speak to them, but steer them back to us if you can. Please. Okay, thanks. I'll talk up the police support. Good, thank you. Amanda stands. Lovely view from here. Matthew turns to take in the panorama. It's a beautiful campus. Yes. How's your daughter doing, by the way? I meant to ask. Oh, much better, actually. The counselor you recommended was really helpful. Thank you. I'm pleased to hear that. So do you normally take a break yourself? Over the summer? Do you have family? Never asked. No, not me. Married to the job. Amanda smiles. Matthew sips at his coffee and raises his hand by way of farewell as Amanda makes her excuses and retreats. He watches her walk back across the terrace and takes in her smart navy suit and expensive handbag. He thinks fondly of Sally, who juggled part-time work with days and jeans with Play-Doh under her fingernails. He hopes they're having a good day today. Not too many worries for the jar. And then as he turns, Matthew is surprised to see a woman he recognizes, checking her watch on the concourse below. He leans closer to the glass barrier to make sure he's not mistaken. No, it's definitely her. Wendy March, another private investigator. He's come across at a couple of networking functions. She's a very different kind of operator, and he doesn't much like her. Matthew frowns, wondering what the hell she's doing on campus. He stands, finishing his coffee, and is planning to head down to speak to Wendy as his phone rings. The display confirms it's Emily's nursery school. Matthew Hill. Matthew Hill, this is the school office. I'm sorry, but we couldn't get a hold of your wife. Is Emily okay? He could feel his heart racing. Please, don't worry. She's fine. She's with a member of staff, but there's been an incident, and I'm hoping you can come to collect her so we can explain properly. I'm afraid we had to call the police. Hold on 1 second, I have to... A family member's in here, just give me 1 second, I'll read the comments. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see here. So, Xavier, I don't know if they're still here, but still gonna read the comments. I love your reading. I'm going to go to bed. Good night, by the way. Keep up the good work. First off, thank you. Second off, have a good rest of your night as well, and a good tomorrow. Because I'll be working tomorrow for sure. I got, yeah, off screen off of YouTube. I do go to a place of employment. No, I will not say which place I go to work. I will not say it. But if you actually want to know, I have worn a hat based off of that workplace on a number of streams. But you guys probably won't see them. Well, you will see them because they're still up on YouTube. But I don't think it really matters. But in any case, I'm just saying that. But yeah, I do have a place to work, so that's how I've been able to get all the things here. You know those Percy Jackson books that I showed off? I got those from work, or from working, and I have two other books over here as well. And I got them. I actually got like a whole line of books piled up here, based on the number of chapters in the book, and that's where this other book that I'm not sure if I want to reveal quite yet, because I still need to finish this book as well. That's why I'm getting through this book. And honestly, ironically, I'm on the second half of this book right here. Let me share like a little bit. Like this book right here that you see in the bottom left of your screen. I'm like a little bit past halfway here through this book. That is your only clue. I will give you a clue. I will give you a hint because this is the part before the final part of this book reading. I will give you a hint and say it does involve a manga. It does involve a manga. The only question is, good luck trying to figure out which manga it is. Good luck. I wish everybody luck trying to figure out which one it is. I may give a separate clue for my reading stream, my last one, or something. I don't know. I'll probably just reveal it after I'm done reading this book. But in any case, we are moving on. Chapter 44. The Mother. I watched the two nurses giving Gemma her bed bath. Sometimes I help, but just now they're doing all the extras. Checking her catheter and her feeding tube, so I'm letting them get on with it. It was quite a shock at first, facing up to the day-to-day reality of Gemma's care. In the movies, a coma looks just like sleep. In the real world, there are these endless checks and the constant fear of bed sores. Physiotherapy. The best times are when they bring the fetal monitor and we listen to the baby's heart. Strong. Surreal. The strength of the rhythm reassures me, and yet it's still so hard to take in. A new life in the midst of all of this. Today I watched them turn Gemma onto her left side, gently moving each arm in turn. Up, down, up, down. Sometimes they ask if I want to take a break while they check everything. They mean, do you really want to be here while we clean her? But I always stay. I saw her through all of that as a baby, and she's still my baby girl. I can feel tears coming in, so to distract myself, I reach for Gemma's laptop. I click through the files that have become so familiar and return to the essays, wondering just what it takes to get a first. Gemma always wrote so brilliantly. There's one on Hardy. It's Tessin the Iberville's portrait. I doubt I pronounced that D'Iberville's. I doubt I pronounced that word. I doubt I pronounced that correctly. Portrayed as being responsible for her own demise. I always loved Hardy. I've always loved Hardy. So I open the file and start reading. But a shiver goes instantly through me because it's not an essay at all. I don't believe it. I'm sitting on my bed, staring at the test stick with tears rolling down my face, and I still don't believe. Two blue lines. Pregnant. How? How? I read on, my mouth gaping. It's Gemma talking, like a diary. I'm so shocked I must have let out some kind of strange noise because one of the nurses turns to me. Are you okay, Mrs. Hartley? I'm fine. Sorry, I'm fine. I'm not. I race through the paragraphs. My poor Gemma agonizing over what to do about the pregnancy. I glance up at her in the bed, and it's so unbearable to hear her voice through the screen of the laptop. So distressed. And then I reach a paragraph which is like a knife. Mom would never cope. It would literally kill her, and I just can't talk to her about this kind of thing. I put my hand up to my mouth. It's as if the room has changed shape. The distance between me and the bed distorted, stretched. I feel almost faint. I read on. The words like bellows on the fire of my feelings. Gemma didn't talk to me because Gemma couldn't talk to me. I didn't let her. I was too closed, too afraid. I skimmed through the rest of the file. She mentions the father, the married man, but there's no name. Why so careful? In her own computer? And why the fake title? I finish the piece and feel for my phone in my pocket. Should I ring D.I. Sanders? I don't understand how they missed this. No, not yet. I need to try to find a name. Something concrete. I need to see if it's just the one piece. And although I can hardly acknowledge it, I need to see what else she's written about our family. About me. I watch the nurses finishing their care. One of them marks up the charts before I'm leaving. I thank them, and as soon as Jem and I are alone, the tears come. I cry for what feels like quite a long time, and then I feel ashamed. Self-indulgent. What right do I have to tears? I put the laptop back on the bedside cabinet and put the headphones back on Gemma, wondering how long before Ed gets back from the cafeteria. I'm dreading talking to him. I check Gemma's ears. First the left ear and then the right to make sure the soft cups are not pinching the flesh. I flipped through the iPad selection and picked Seashore. She's always loved the sea. I'm so sorry, Gemma, for how I've been. What I've been. I brush my face dry. There's so much I have to tell you, Gemma. When you're better, when all of this is behind us. I'm whispering, playing with the ends of her long hair, golden brown, the shade that catches the light and glistens like a conker or a burnished nut. I remember watching her in the sunshine in the garden when she was little, running in and out of the sprinkler on a hot day. The sunlight caught her hair, and I thought how lucky she was to have that shade. Not like mine. Brown, boring brown. I can feel tears pricking my eyes again, but fight hard to stop them. I'm angry with your father for telling so many lies. But the truth is, but the truth is I'm a complete hypocrite, darling. and a terrible coward too. I'm aware that I'm only saying this because I know she can't hear me. The words an empty echo in my head, wondering when I will find the courage to tell them both the whole truth, out loud, no headphones. That my father was a drunk, that he beat my mother, and I have always been terribly ashamed of that. It's the wrong reaction. I do see that now. I should be angry, not embarrassed, but I have never worked it out properly in my head. I was the one who caused the bigger showdown, over the tea bags and my sandwiches, when she had to call the police and we had to leave. We can't take all your things, Rachel, just your favorites. Get your bear in your pajamas. And so I closed it down and pretended I had a different childhood, and I tried to gift that childhood to Emma, or Gemma, the better version, the perfect version, the version with no Rose, no conflict at all. Only I've stuffed it up, haven't I? Because nothing's ever perfect, isn't it? And all I've done is push her away from me. Been a mother she can't even talk to. I'm losing the fight against the tears as the door clicks open. I can smell the coffee but turn away to wipe my face before I look at him. I'm still struggling to believe it. He hands me my cup. It's very hot and he's forgotten the cardboard holder, so I put it on the floor, not wanting it next to the laptop on the bedside cabinet. I need to keep that safe. Read what else she has to say. You actually hired a private detective to see if I was having an affair? I've already said I'm sorry. I wish I could take it back. I look up at him and then at Gemma, wishing I could take everything back. And to my great surprise, I find that I've simply had enough. Mom would never cope. I just can't talk to her about this kind of thing. It's like stepping on a twig and making a noise when you're trying not to be seen. I can't help it. The noise is out there and I simply don't have the energy anymore to hold in all the lies. My father was an alcoholic, Ed, and violent too. The version of my childhood I told you was a complete lie. I didn't push you about Canada or what happened there because I didn't want you to push me about my past. When I turn to him, the shock on Ed's face is all-consuming. It's like he's looking at someone he doesn't even recognize. He opens his mouth to speak, but then changes his mind and just puts his coffee down on the floor, too. For a moment, I'm afraid he's either going to storm off or try to hug me. I don't honestly know which would be worse, but I do know that I don't want to be touched. In the end, he stays in the chair and his gaze moves around the room and then back at me. Did he hurt you? Your father? Not me physically, but he beat my mother. Many times. And quite badly the final time. He beat her? I don't know why I couldn't tell you. I didn't tell anyone. I was actually quite ashamed. And as a child I thought it was my fault. So I just kind of pushed it down. I find that I am touching my stomach for some reason. I feel this knot of familiar anxiety and recognize the matching desire to deal with it. Stop it. To go into the kitchen to bake something lovely. To smooth things over with cakes and flapjacks and the warm smell of homemade jam. But here, trapped in this room with the machines and the bleeps and the smell only of sanitizer and bad coffee, all I can do is reach across to check the iPad to make sure that Gemma's headphones are still playing the sound of the sea. Waves and seagulls. I need to at least be sure that none of this is seeping through to her. Ed reaches up to put his hand on his forehead as if processing, thinking. So that's why you can't bear arguments. Won't work things out. Why you won't. His voice trails away and he sits up straighter. But I don't understand. Why the change these past months? Why the sudden questions about Canada after all these years? Why the suspicion? Why did you start to doubt me? I don't know. I don't know. I suppose the thought of Gemma leaving, finishing university, leaving for good. I started to worry about what it would be like, just you and me, and I started to think about Canada, about my lies, started wondering about your past a bit, and when I asked you, you were really weird with me, avoiding me. And so I thought, but a private detective? I know. It feels mad now, and terribly hypocritical, given my own lies. But it was the thought of Gemma leaving us for good, starting a job, just me and you in the house, not just during term, but all the time. And I'm getting older and fatter. I started to worry that we might not make it going forward without Gemma. I guess I thought, why wouldn't you have an affair? Everyone else seems to. You don't even know me. I'm a fake. A liar. Oh, Rachel. Ed is looking at me with the eyes I cannot read. This man who was married to someone else once. This stranger? How the hell did we get here? He stands and turns away for a moment. I hold my breath, and after a while he turns back, his expression softer. I do love you, Rachel. I promise that. I've never even thought about having an affair. But all these lies? I don't know what to think anymore. He pauses and drops his voice down something I can't make out. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. I said it was my fault, not yours. You can't blame yourself for what your father did, but I have no excuse. I don't know what I was thinking not telling you about Laura. I suppose I just felt ashamed for giving up on her, walking away. I was so relieved when you didn't push me in the early days. It was like getting a pass, permission for a fresh start. He looks at Gemma now. But I've let my guilt blind me. I honestly didn't think she was capable of hurting anyone, Laura. I was sure the police were wrong to even suspect her. But I'm worried now that I was just hoping to let myself off the hook. I will never forgive myself if I'm to blame for what happened to our girl. His voice is terribly quiet again, hauntingly so. I close my eyes. A myriad of scenes suddenly swirl through my mind. Go away until you calm down, Gemma. I'm not going to have an argument. I can see her on the lawn again, running in and out of that sprinkler. Next, I am a child again in my rabbit slippers, watching my mother on the floor of the kitchen with blood on her face. It's as if the temperature in the room has changed, and I feel as if I'm not quite in my own body, also a little bit sick. I listen to the rhythm of the monitors, the bleeping, the beat getting louder and louder. Rachel, stop that! You're hurting yourself. Ed's voice. I don't know what he means and I don't want to open my eyes to find out. It's like I honestly felt until today that I was doing okay as a mother, that loving her with my whole heart was enough. And suddenly I realize that I've done a terrible job. No, worse than a terrible job. I've done damage. And it's like a picture coming into focus, and I can't believe I didn't see any of this before. Stop it, Rachel. Stop it, Rachel. Look at me. I open my eyes to find Ed is holding both my arms at the wrists. I struggle free and pound again at my head, bashing each word into my forehead to match the bleep bleep of the machines. I've lied, and I've let Ed lie. I've let us build a whole family on lies, 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 to avoid anything uncomfortable. Again, Ed grabs my wrist and holds them tighter this time, so I have to stop the pounding. He looks into my eyes and I feel as if I'm going to fall down. As if my skeleton is mounting inside my body. No, this is my fault, isn't it? I look right into his eyes, but it doesn't sound like my voice. I've let Gemma down. Never taught her how to deal with things. How to face things. I'm crying again. My wrists still held tight away from my body, so that I cannot check the tears rolling down my face. I'll let go if you promise not to hit yourself. I don't want him to let go. I am afraid that if he lets go, I will crumble to a pile of dust on the floor. Look at me, Rachel. Do you promise to stop? What have we done? I stretch out my palms like a plea. Finally, he lets go and I wait to fall. Through the floor. Through time. What have we done to our beautiful girl? Hey, he's probably not here anymore, but sometimes my view count likes to mess with me. Hey, Tim Dog, how you doing tonight? If you're still here, how you doing tonight? Chapter 45. The Daughter Before. Don't worry, I'll be looking at chat again if he were to say something. Discuss the theme of isolation as portrayed in Jane Eyre. I honestly can't believe how much has changed since I last wrote in this file. Seriously. A whole new avenue has opened up for me. Something completely unexpected. The first big news is that I've found someone to talk to properly about the pregnancy. It's been a bit surprising and I won't go into detail as it will be tempting fate, and knowing my luck, will all go horribly wrong. All I can say is that this isn't through uni counseling or anything, so it's not dangerous. I mean, I know uni services are supposed to be 100% confidential, but if I let slip anything that might identify the father, they'd be bound to do something, wouldn't they? Suspend him or something? Anyway, this has all happened very quickly. Off campus. Out of the blue. Safe. I've become friends with someone who really gets me. Understands exactly what I'm going through. It's like having a weight lifted. To actually sit and calmly talk to someone about things that are so difficult and so serious. I keep thinking about my mom and how I couldn't in a million years have this kind of conversation or this kind of relationship with her. I had no idea this sort of calm support was even possible. And suddenly, I'm seeing not only that I'm strong enough to get through this, but that I have more options than I'd realized. Apparently, you can do private adoptions. I didn't really know anything about this. I'd assumed it was just part of surrogacy or something. I discounted adoption as I know that mom and dad would completely freak out at the prospect of having a grandchild out there with no proper contact. But get this, with a private adoption, you can write your own rules. Be as involved as you want in the child's life. Like I say, it's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, because it no longer feels as if it's a black and white choice. Have the baby and put off all my dreams, or have an abortion and possibly regret it. I mean, I'm not judging others here. Some people are fine having a termination, and that's their business and their right, but I just don't think that's me. It's been keeping me up at night, and I still feel fury that that it was his immediate reaction to get rid of the child. But a private adoption? Maybe. I'm not going to make any quick decisions, of course, as I've been swinging like a pendulum ever since I found out about the pregnancy. But I want to at least consider this properly. And I don't have to decide until after the graduation ceremony, so I just need to get my head straight, dig deep, and talk to mom and dad. Results are in 10 days. All I need now is to get that damn first. Also, just before I sign off, I need to sort out my Facebook security settings. I've had another couple of weird messages. I'm trying to be calmer about it as it's hopefully just someone random. But I've been Googling and I didn't even realize that you can check which devices have logged into your Facebook account. Unbelievable. There have been loads of logins on devices I don't recognize. An iPad Air. I don't have one. And a Mac. Don't have one of them either. Obviously, my money is on A. I changed my password, but if he was already logged in via some other device, I'm wondering if that is a loophole. No idea. I can apparently disallow these other devices which might solve the problem. We'll see. I just wish I was on to all this sooner. I'm always careful now about what I post on Facebook, and I don't use DMs anymore, just to be on the safe side. I wish I'd taken the whole security side of social media more seriously before now. But I'm feeling a tiny bit better overall. Not crying quite so much. If I could just get results and graduation out of the way, and then get mom and dad behind me, hopefully I can make the right decisions and come out of this all okay. Chapter 46. The Private Investigator. Emily has paint all over her hands when Matthew arrives at the school. She's in the art room of the nursery with one of the classroom assistants and beams as he walks into the room. Matthew sweeps her into a hug, not caring about the pain, and closes his eyes with relief. You're hugging too tight, Daddy. Sorry, darling. Sorry. I got paint on your shirt. It doesn't matter. Listen, I need to just have a quick chat with the head teacher, and then we're going home early. Am I in trouble? No, no, of course not. He kisses her on the forehead, cupping her face. What about that lunch? What about my lunch? They said it's crumble and custard today. We'll have lunch with Mommy. Find you something nice. Ice cream. With chocolate sauce? Matthew ruffles his daughter's hair, and relief still sweeping through him. Trust Emily to play the advantage card. He stands and looks towards the head teacher, Mrs. Lewis, who's waiting in the doorway. She's in charge of both the main school and the nursery wing, too. Yes to chocolate sauce. I'll be back in just a moment. You finish your lovely picture. Matthew follows Mrs. Lewis into her office where a uniformed officer is waiting. The PC introduces himself and looks wary. Matthew's already explained on the phone that there are complications, but he'll need Mel to sort out the protocols. The head teacher gave him an outline on the phone and he shared the bare bones with Mel, but they urgently need more details. My wife should be here in about 10 minutes. He checks his watch, thinking of his own frantic drive here. Sally was at the hairdresser's and is distraught to have missed the school's call, which went to voicemail while she was at the basin. Mrs. Lewis adjusts her screen so that Matthew and the police officer can see the footage from the school security cameras. We had a problem a couple of years back with reports of a man hanging around outside, so we had these installed, covering the playground and the gates. As I said, Emily came in during the morning playtime to say she had a letter for her daddy. Mrs. Lewis presses play on her machine and Matthew watches the blurred image. Emily is playing hopscotch on a roll near the corner of the playground and then suddenly looks up. A woman is standing outside the playground railings. Emily pauses as if listening and then walks over to the woman. Matthew feels his stomach muscles tighten. Emily and the stranger talk for just a moment and then the woman passes something through the railings. They seem to say something else to each other and then Emily moves across the playground, out of sight of the camera. She came straight inside and told a teacher about the letter. Wasn't there a teacher on playground duty for the little ones? Matthew can't help his tone. The nursery has its own section on the playground. Closer supervision, surely. Yes, of course, but the staff member with Emily's group was dealing with a child who'd fallen over and hurt her knee, so she didn't see what happened. Mrs. Lewis straightens her back. Right, so is Emily upset? Matthew tries to calm his tone. He doesn't want Mrs. Lewis to be defensive. Not her fault. But he can feel fury rising inside him that his daughter had been dragged into this. Again. No, she said the woman told her she had an urgent letter for Daddy, and she'd missed the post. We told Emily that she'd been a good girl to tell us right away, but... The head teacher lets out a long sigh. Look, I don't want Emily to feel she's in trouble, but we will obviously need to agree how we take this forward with her, and with the other children too. We'll need to be open that the woman was in the wrong. The children don't always have to do what an adult says. We'll need to reinforce the stranger rules. We can't let this happen again. No, of course not. We'll talk to Emily carefully. Matthew rakes his finger through his hair. They've warned Emily not to talk to strangers, but she's so young, she can't be blamed. How could she know what to do in this situation? She was in nursery, supposed to be safe, and the woman was crafty, implying she was helping her daddy. Wretched woman. What the hell was she really doing? He asks Miss Lewis to play the tape again and leans in even closer. The image of the woman is blurred. She's wearing a pale mac with a belt and has long hair. Could be Laura. Could equally be someone else entirely. Just this morning his money was on Alex as their man, but now he's not so sure. If this is Laura, he wonders what might have triggered her to suddenly pursue Ed after all these years. And his family too? He must speak to Ed again, see if there's anything in recent times that might have upset Laura, set her off, stirred up her illness and made things worse. I'm involved in a major investigation at the moment, with D.I. Mel Sanders. Matthew is directing this as much as the uniformed officer as the head teacher. There's a possibility this is linked. D.I. Sanders will want a copy of this tape to see if we can enhance it. The PC is looking worried now. So this is definitely being bumped? I'll still need to do a report. Of course. I'll get D.I. Sanders to liaise with you. I can't say too much at the moment. The law is confidential. The PC makes a note in his pocketbook, still looking curious. Wary. Thank you, Mrs. Lewis. And the letter. Did anyone open it? Matthew's desperate to see it, but is reluctant to push too hard. He doesn't want to clash with the PC in front of the head. No, we called the police straight away. Try to keep things low-key for Emily. Good, thank you. Should the school be worried, Mr. Hill? We need to be fully in the picture if there's a threat, if this could happen again. Matthew feels his heart sink. This is the last thing he wanted for Emily, and Sally too. I'll ask D.I. Sanders to speak to you as soon as possible, Mrs. Lewis. Right. Good. And what about Emily in the meantime? I understand she's been having counseling. She's been much more her usual self in nursery these past couple of days, but I'm concerned this will set her back. Matthew notices the police constable raising his eyebrows, clearly wondering what is really going on here. Yes, this is the last that we all needed. May I see the letter, please? The PC puts his hand in his pocket, fishes out an evidence bag, and puts it on the head teacher's desk. Inside the sealed bag, ready for forensics, is a white envelope. I'll need to log this myself, the PC says, as if reading Matthew's mind. Sure. Matthew uses his phone to take a photograph of the evidence bag to show to Mel while it's being processed. It's handwritten. Neat, sloping writing with a quite distinctive M. Shouldn't be difficult to get it checked against Laura's. As soon as my wife arrives, we'll take Emily home and be in touch once I speak to D.I. Sanders again. Matthew pulls back. He doesn't add what he's really thinking, that he's not even sure if it's safe to take his daughter and wife home. He's thinking of the dolls. So where does this fit in? Matthew's mind is spinning. Maybe his family should go away somewhere. Take a break while he and Mel try to figure out what on earth is really going on here. He looks away towards the door, spooling through the options. Mel's mom is a close neighbor, so that's no good. Maybe an Airbnb. Tell Emily it's a little holiday. He badly needs to bounce this past Mel, see what she thinks. Also Sally. He checks his watch again, bracing himself for her arrival. He's praying she's driving safely. She's going to be horrified, frightened, and quite possibly angry with him too for dragging them into this. He remembers how upset she was when he left them in town that very first day. There's a gunman in the cathedral. Sally's face in the summer house when he arrived. The bomb squad checking the door in the kitchen. Do you want tea while you wait? Mrs. Lewis says at last. No, but thank you. That would be very nice, the PC contradicts, if it's not too much trouble. Mrs. Lewis picks up her phone while Matthew and the PC both stare at the evidence bag on the desk. Matthew wishing he could just grab it and rip open the letter, desperate to know what it says. We are almost to the end of this part of the book. We actually have 5 chapters left to go. But based on this is how many I got. It got literally like just that little bit left of it. Almost spoiled the chapter where I'm ending. Well, the chapter that I'll be reading on to start the next part. Chapter 47. The Father Before. There were several things about Laura that both puzzled and delighted Ed in the early days of their relationship. Long before he had any idea that their story was to end so badly. They moved in together within just a couple of months. A few friends raised their eyebrows, but Ed had no doubts at all. They were almost ridiculously happy. They were spending nearly all their time together, so why not live together? It was an hour commute to the school in Wells where she taught music, but Laura loved driving. She was only working 3 days per week and insisted she didn't mind. She played classical favorites at full volume and told him that she liked the space, the time to herself. Sometimes he worried that she had made too many compromises, agreeing to be the one to the move for starters, but it was all very spontaneous. Also, his question of practicality. Laura had a tiny studio flat with very limited cooking facilities on the outskirts of Wells. The first couple of weekends he went to stay with her, but mostly they ate out because her oven and hot plate was broken and the landlord was ignoring all her pleas to fix it. They each confided that they actually loved both to shop and to cook, so Laura offered to visit him instead. She fell instantly in love with his much larger kitchen, and more significantly, his range cooker. So very quickly they switched to spending nearly all their early weekend at Ed's flat. Then, while pouring wine as she ladled stock into a risotto one night, he just blurted it out. Why don't you just stay? Move in, I mean. Forget the rose with your stupid landlord. She just smiled. I thought you'd never ask. And yes, in those early months, she was this extraordinary puzzle, constantly surprising him. He discovered very quickly that she rose ridiculously early, 6 a.m. every single day, to do her exercise routine before music practice. He had imagined weekends would be different as she relaxed into their relationship, and she would look forward to a lie-in with him at weekends. But no. He would wake groggy and slightly disoriented, an image of sex from the night before, bringing a smile to his face even before he opened his eyes. He would reach out across the bed, hoping for a repeat, only to find her gone. A glance at the clock would bring an involuntary groan. 7 a.m., and he was already alone. He would then tiptoe to the loo as a pretense to see what she was up to, and every morning would be the same. He would find her on her exercise mat, her strawberry blonde hair piled into a messy high bun. Laura said the early rising was part nature and partly due to her short stint in the army. The discipline. That was a shock too. The whole military thing. But she said it was perfect. Just a limited spell and mainly for the music. Financial independence from her parents after uni and a chance to play in some huge concerts. She'd loved it. I played for your queen once. You didn't. You didn't. I bloody did. But didn't you have to go on military tours? What if there had been a war? Ed associated the army with violence, killing, and Laura was the least violent person he'd ever met. But what if they'd sent you into battle? That's the contract, isn't it? Chill, Ed. I played fabulous concerts. I had access to the best gyms and I worked in financial admin. It was a breeze. Sometimes he would just stand and stare at her while wondering at the contradictions, her extraordinary energy, the differences between them. He liked to laze about on a weekend morning. She wanted to go out and about as early as possible. Come on, let's go for a walk. Get brunch. Don't you ever feel groggy? Tired in the morning? Never? What is the matter with you, Laura? My brain doesn't ever let me keep still, Ed. It's always buzzing. Too noisy. Music is the only thing that makes it quieten down. When I'm not playing music, I can't bear it. Come on. Let's go out. Please. Later, when everything went so terribly for them in Canada, he would look back on those conversations and wonder if he should have heard an alarm bell ringing. Ask her what she really meant about her brain buzzing all the time. Was it a factor? Was it some small missed signal from the trauma that was to come? But at the time he just felt they had different biological clocks. An owl and a lark. Also, it was rather good for him to get out and about more than he would have chosen. Laura was the champion of finding quirky places to visit, forever checking out composers and singers and dragging him to see their homes. He lost count of the number of times he was positioned outside a property to be told that a special piece of music had been written within its walls. Something that will last forever. Isn't that amazing, Ed? He wished he could say it was. He wished he could match the wonder in her eyes. but Ed was more practical by nature, a man who liked to see evidence, to feel a connection with wonder. He needed to see flints and golden coins and actual treasure dug up and displayed in shiny cabinets. Alongside Laura, he was very often prosaic, despite his supposed creative career. I write for a living, he liked to tell people. He did not add that it was marketing and advertising copy. So was he jealous of Laura the musician? Laura who could make the piano seem to sing? Laura who had played in a concert for the Queen? No. Very quickly he realized those moments when he stared at her on their exercise mat at a ridiculous early hour of the morning, or gazing transfixed at the home of some composer or singer, and he was not only in love with her, but in complete awe of her. She's extraordinary, he would tell people who questioned how quickly they moved in together. For him, the relationship did not move too fast. He had no doubts, for during that spell in Wales and the early days in Canada, they were genuinely very happy. There was just one small piece of the puzzle Ed would forget until it was much too late. Once, she made, from her exercise mat, she made an aside as, groggy and half asleep, he was messing with the coffee machine. It was loudly hissing its disapproval, the water tank nearly empty, so he didn't quite pick up what she was saying. We should make it our thing, cathedrals. Don't you think, Ed? Sorry, I can't quite hear you over this machine. What did you say? We should go to a cathedral for all our special anniversaries. 10 years, 20 years, and so on. It would be romantic to remember how we met. Sorry, honey. Now he was running a tap to fill the water tank. I can't really hear you. Chapter 48. Blue. It's 5 a.m. and I'm sitting in the new chair in the nursery. I still don't sleep. Not properly. So it's become a habit to move in here to wait for the light. Though it's very hard, actually, sitting here and not knowing how things are going to map out. It's cold, which always makes me feel more afraid and unsure. But that's probably natural. The tiredness, the quiet, the cold. I am tapping my right foot up and down, and try to still it. But it's so difficult to be still. I just have to stay positive, determined. For me, and especially for the baby. Everything will be different when there are two of us in here. Our little bubble away from them all. If I'm perfectly honest, the chair is not as comfortable as I'd hoped. Another of my impulse buys. I fell in love with the design and the color, sea blue, and I let that sway me. I've tried different cushions, but I just can't get comfy. Oh well, I suppose I could get another one delivered. Some people say it's bad luck to get everything ready too early, but I find it exciting. It makes me feel in control, and some days it's the only thing that keeps me going. To come in here and wind forward to the days when we will be here together, just the two of us. All the stress and the hurt behind me. There are a few things still to put together, but it won't take long, so I'm going to wait until all the fuss dies down. I've kept the blind down because I don't want anyone looking in. Watching me, I mean. They might get the wrong idea and meddle. People do that way too much. Meddle, ask questions, drives me mad. Are you sure you're okay? Of course I'm okay. Leave me alone. And that's the beauty of this plan and the thing I hold on to when I can't sleep. The thought of being alone in the best possible way. In here. With the baby. Just me, but not truly alone anymore. No one to misunderstand. No one to let me down. We're 2 chapters away from the final bit of this part. Chapter 49. The Mother. That's enough for today. I'm getting a bit hoarse, darling. I closed the book, marking the place with a postcard. This one's a much better choice. An old favorite of Gemma's. The Mill on the Floss. I put the book down on the bedside locker and glance at the laptop. I am trying to resist prying. I am trying to concentrate on Gemma and to respect her privacy, but I can feel my heart quickening every time the light catches the shiny surface of the laptop lid. The truth is, I'm burning to know if there's any more diary stuff by Gemma hidden in those files. I've looked. Of course I've looked. The problem here, the problem is there are a lot of real essays. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack. Lots of work on poetry and Shakespeare. Also some creative writing. Very good, I thought. I suppose it's possible there was only that one day that Gemma jotted personal stuff instead of writing her essay. I have no idea. The dates are all over the place and there are quite a lot of module headings as well as essay headings. But it's like a haunting, wondering if there's something in that laptop that might help us. I reach over and put it on the end of the bed again, waiting for it to load. I suppose I should talk to Ed about that one piece I found. Maybe the police too? But D.I. Sanders said they checked for anything important, and I don't want them to take the laptop away again, not unless it's genuinely helpful. It makes me feel closer to Gemma. It makes me feel useful, and hand on heart, I still want to know if she wrote anything else about me. I click on a few files in turn. More creative writing. The beginnings of a short story. Unfinished. An essay about Virginia Woolf's work. Pages and pages on that one. I should have been more methodical. Made a note of which files I've checked already. But hang on. What's this? Discuss the theme of isolation as portrayed in Jane Eyre. I open the document and can see immediately that it's not an essay at all. It's Gemma's voice again. Right in my head. It's like the other diary entry, but she's sounding very different here. More positive. I honestly can't believe how much has changed since I last wrote in this file. Seriously. A whole new avenue has opened up for me. Something completely unexpected. I'm desperate to know how long this was after the panic of the last entry I found. I've read as far as I can. I read as fast as I can, devouring the words. And then it's like the air is being sucked from my lungs. It's the most unexpected thing. It's like having a weight lifted. To actually sit and calmly talk to someone about things that are so difficult and so serious. I keep thinking about my mom and how I couldn't in a million years have this kind of conversation or this kind of relationship with her. I have no idea this sort of calm support was even possible. I sit back from the laptop and am stilled. I look across at Gemma and burn with the shame of what I'm feeling. I should be pleased that she found a friend. And I am. Sort of. But I am also feeling jealous. That we were so very far apart, she couldn't talk to me. That I am not the kind of mother my lovely daughter could turn to. I need to read on, but first I move across to the bed. I'm so very sorry, Gemma. I smooth her hair and kiss her forehead, leaving my lips touching her flesh for a few seconds. But there's something not quite right. I pull back. Her skin feels especially warm, which is unusual. She looks so still and so distant. I have come to associate her form in the bed with coolness, apartness. I could never in a million years talk to my mother. I reach for her hand. It feels quite warm, too. I wonder about calling a nurse and trying to remember the temperature of her hand the last time I held it. Am I imagining this? Am I just upset from reading the laptop? I feel Gemma's forehead with the back of my hand, but it's not hot per se. Not like a fever or anything. It occurs to me that I find the hospital too hot most of the time, so perhaps it's my own body thermometer that's struggling. I feel my own forehead comparison. And then it happens. Gemma suddenly opens her eyes. It's such a shock that at first I simply gape, frozen and silent, just staring at those beautiful blue eyes. Then both joy and panic kick in. Gemma, Gemma, it's Mom. Can you see me? Can you hear me? I'm right here, darling. Squeeze my hand if you can hear me. I stretch out with my free hand to ring the buzzer for a nurse, all the while talking, babbling about how wonderful it is to see her, that I've been here all the time. How sorry, so very sorry I am about everything. For a short while, Gemma's eyes are wide open, staring at the ceiling, but then they close again. Gemma, open your eyes, darling. You can do this. I'm right here by the bed. You can wake up now. You're perfectly safe. On and on, I babble as the nurse appears. She opened her eyes. Not for long, but wide open. The nurse looks at all the numbers on the machine and gently lifts Gemma's left eyelid to check the pupil. Hello, Gemma. It's your nurse here. Do you want to open your eyes for me now? You're in hospital, but you're perfectly safe. Can you hear me? Do you want to open your eyes again for me? We wait. We watch. We wait. Nothing happens. The nurse repeats her encouragement. Nothing. She looks at me. She's definitely opened her eyes. I didn't imagine it. Did she look at you? Respond to your voice? No, I don't know. She was just looking at the ceiling. But this is a good sign, isn't it? She could be waking up? Possibly. It's a good sign, yes. I'll let the doctor know. You should keep talking to her. Stay with her. Call us if anything else happens. I will. I will. I stroke the hair from Gemma's face. I'm still here, Gemma. Right here. I'm not going anywhere. I promise you. You know what? On second thought, I may just actually... I know I said I was going to do 2 more chapters, but I feel like this might be a good place to stop, because the next chapter will have something that happens at the end of it that I feel like could be like one of those... Like, where, you know, like the preview of the... Like, you know, like how they do the opening scene, and then it cuts to black and they do the opening. Thinking of Law and Order when I say this. I think we should probably save this chapter for that. Be it like that, you know what I'm saying? So, I am going to go ahead and end that there. Because we should end it on a good note, instead of a bad one. Because the next chapter is going to end on a bad note, but of course I'm not going to say how. In any event, I'm going to go ahead and end it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for watching this part of Her Perfect Family. Tomorrow night, we read this will be the finale. Tomorrow night will be the finale of this book reading. Because I like to read a book and finish it all the way with no interruptions. And then we'll wait and then next week I'll read this next book that's right beside me. Yeah. You know it's a hardcover book based on how I just went. So you know it's a hardcover book. But in any case, I will be reviewing this other book right beside me tomorrow night after we finish this book. So without further ado, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this reading of Her Perfect Family, this part of the book, of reading the book. And if you haven't seen the other 2 parts, I highly recommend if you liked watching part 3, but you're not sure what happened leading up to this part, I highly recommend watching parts 1 and 2 so you know exactly what's going on. But for tomorrow night, we finish the book, and then we reveal the next book I'll be reading, which will be read next week. But in any case, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I said this like 3-4 times now, but still, thank you guys very much. And until next time, this is Forrest Walpole, signing off. And I hate how I gotta move my finger to the left side like how I gotta move it to where you guys see my thumb pressing the X on the camera. It's stupid! But whatever. Have a good rest of your night.